Congressman Jamie Raskin's a Democrat of Maryland. He served on the January 6th committee. He's the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, and he joins me now. Congressman, new Speaker Mike Johnson, your thoughts?
Well, you cannot get to the right of Mike Johnson in the MAGA caucus. It's inconceivable that you could get to the right of him. I mean, there are people who are definitely more lunatic than he is. And he's got very good manners, and he's an able lawyer. But when we say he opposed democracy, we know that from his giving a legal gloss and finish to all of Donald Trump's arguments about electoral fraud and making the independent state legislature doctrine argument, which the Supreme Court fortunately did not bite on. But if he's not for democracy, what's he for? He's for theocracy. He wants a nationwide ban on abortion with no exceptions for rape or incest. He voted against affirming women's right to travel across state lines for the purposes of obtaining health care. He's also voted against reaffirming women's contraceptive rights. He is a real enemy of Social Security from my perspective. He wanted to increase the age of Social Security retirement to 70 years old. He's very much in the Steve Bannon mode of trying to dismantle the regulatory state, by which they mean democracy itself. And so he's a decent guy, and he's a nice guy, but nobody should be fooled by it. Donald Trump cemented his hold over the Republican Party today, and he is in control of the House of Representatives right now.
Yeah. Also, I'm just going to go out and make a prediction. I usually don't do this. Trump's going to be mad at him at some point. He's going to turn on him at some point. He's going to betray Trump at some point. Like, we've watched this a million times, right? I mean, Kevin McCarthy, went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. He took all the wrong-colored starbursts out of his, out of his bowl to present to Donald Trump. And what good did that do him? The guy got cut loose. So, I don't know how long the clock is on Mike Johnson. The future's undetermined.
Yeah, and they could end up having a major conflict over abortion. I mean, for Mike Johnson, he really believes that it should be a crime for someone to have abortion. For Donald Trump, of course, he's completely flexible on the issue. He used it in order to take over the Republican Party, and he appointed radical anti-choice justices. But at this point, he'd like to leave it alone because he knows how to read a poll. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between the two of them. Mike Johnson's a true believer. I was reflecting today as the voting was going on that if he watched The Handmaid's Tale, he would not be rooting for June Osborne. He'd be rooting for Gilead the entire time.
He comes from the religious right part of the party. He worked for ADF, which is a sort of, right-wing legal org that's brought a whole bunch of suits. When a Louisiana newspaper, he wrote an op-ed in 2003 decrying the Supreme Court striking down sodomy laws, saying that prescriptions against sodomy have deep roots in religion, politics, and law. When Louisiana instituted its abortion ban in June 2022, breaking late yesterday, the Department of Health informed abortion facilities in our state the right to life has now been restored. Perform an abortion, get imprisoned at hard labor for 1 to 10 years, and fined $10K to $100K. What does it portend for democracy, the defining feature, what happened to Emmer, like the interaction between Emmer rising to the surface, Trump being like, nope, he's on the wrong side of the most important issue, which is that he's not a coup abettor. Emmer dropping out 4 hours later, and then Mike Johnson, coup abettor, that's my guy. What are the implications of that?
Well, Trump vetoed Emmer. He plucked Johnson out of obscurity and propelled him to the speakership. If we were to allow these people to take over the House, the Senate, and the White House, we would be where Hungary is today. It's illiberal democracy that they're interested in. Tight control over the electoral process to make sure the results always move in an authoritarian direction, and then cracking down on civil rights and civil liberties, the rights of women. They're profoundly anti-gay. They're against the right of gay people to get married. They would try to roll the clock back 50 years. in America. That's really where they are at this point. So the stakes have been drawn real clearly in terms of the 2024 election. We've got the Democratic Party, the party of democracy and freedom, against the GOP, which has a bag of tricks in voter suppression, gerrymandering of federal and state legislative districts, right-wing judicial activism, the filibuster, all of those things to try to prevent real democratic priorities. And that's going to be the struggle against the theocrats and the autocrats and the kleptocrats and, Vladimir Putin moving into the 2024 election.
Yeah, speaking of Vladimir Putin, we'll talk about that in a second in our next guest about how that next piece of legislation is going to look. Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you very much.